You're listening to Ideal Practice, episode number 17. Today, guys, we're doing something a little different because I'm going to introduce you to a personal friend of mine. I have a really special guest today. You get to meet the one and only Janet Feld. Janet is a professional musician, a performing songwriter, and a music teacher who lives in the Boston area. We first met in a mastermind group, a group of entrepreneurs who were working with the same business coach in Asheville, North Carolina. And it has been such a treat to watch her grow over the last few years. I've seen Janet do some things in her business that were really creative and a few things that might actually sound a little crazy, but were in fact incredibly brave. I've watched her make the shift from being exhausted, overworked, and seriously underpaid to being the CEO of a thriving six-figure business. And her story, her growth, has been an inspiration to me. Today, I've asked her to share that story with you, and I think you're in for a treat. So, stay tuned. Hi, I'm Wendy Pitts-Reeves, and with over 2 decades of experience in the private practice world, I've built my six-figure business while learning a lot of lessons the hard way. This is the first podcast that shows you how to apply the principles of energy, alignment, and strategy to build a practice that is profit-centered, but people-forward. This is the Ideal Practice Podcast. Hey guys, this is Wendy. Thank you so much for tuning in today. So you might be asking, why would I be talking to a music teacher on a show designed for healing arts professionals? Well, because Janet honestly is kind of a healer in her own right, and I think you'll get that as you get to know her. In fact, if you stick around to the end of this episode, you'll get to hear a really sweet story she shared about one of her students that I swear is as therapeutic as anything I've ever heard. But it is her journey as a business owner that I really want you to hear. She's made some of the same mistakes and learned some of the same lessons that you and I deal with all the time. And I think we can learn from her and the way she's handled those lessons. I do have one little technical note I need to share with you. I actually recorded this interview as I was just beginning to learn how to manage kind of the tech side of this whole process. So you might notice that our mic levels are not quite as even as I would hope. I'm sorry about that. It's just all part of my learning. I hope you can overlook it. I'm going to just thank you for your patience in advance. And I hope you will listen anyway, because I really think we have a lot to learn from the way Janet has approached the challenges in her practice. All right. So without any further ado, let's get into it, shall we? All right, everybody. Thank you for being here. I am so excited because today we get to talk to one of my best friends on the planet who is a little different. Her work is different than what most of you are involved in. But I think as we talk, you're going to find out that there are a lot more similarities than you would have expected. So hi, Janet.
Hey, Wendy. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
You are welcome. Thank you for taking out the time. Tell us, Janet, just tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and then we'll dive into some of the good stuff.
Yeah, well, I'm a teacher and I'm a performing songwriter. I'm a music teacher specifically. And part of my why is that I want as many people as I can possibly manage to experience the fact that you don't have to be from the special talented planet in order to learn how to play music. The only thing that needs to be true is that you feel like it and you're willing to put in a moderate amount of practice time.
You are one of the best teachers that I know of because I can't tell you how many times I've been around someone that I think is a little tone deaf, and I think Janet could work with them. Yeah, because you are such a believer in people. Tell us a little bit about where your business was when you and I met.
Well, like most musicians, I was teaching way too many hours a week. I was teaching like 6 days a week. 3 days a week were like 12-hour days.
Goodness.
And with all of my private students, I was driving to see them. So I spent a lot of time in the car, and I was also severely undercharging. I was headed for burnout. I knew that what I was doing was not sustainable, but I had really no clue what to do instead. And I had all the mindset issues that you would expect from someone who plays folk music.
Yeah.
And especially a bigger issue for women where we feel like, oh, I don't want to offend people. If I charge a lot more, people will think I'm a terrible person. We spend our lives hearing messages about don't take up space, be quiet, be good.
Right. Don't ask for too much.
Don't ask for too much. So all of those things, just what epitomizes it is just how my father, how he felt when I told him that I wanted to be a musician for a living when I was in my 20s. He was from the old country. And, so his feeling, it scared him when he's like, I sent you to college and you want to be a folk singer for a living.
You know how crazy that is, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and all I knew is that I couldn't not do it. It's like telling me to stop playing music. It's like, sure, I'll cut my arm off. As our former coach says, sometimes you don't need to change the what, you just need to change the how. So I needed to find a way to do it differently because I really had no clue.
So back then, that makes me tired just hearing how much you were working during that time. You were driving all over Boston, making home visits for your lessons. The kids didn't come to you, you went to them.
Yep.
You were working in several different venues and schools and settings.
Yeah.
And 6 days a week and just scrambling, it sounds like, to chase every penny you could.
Yes.
Right?
That's right. And so, I was earning a living wage, but what it took to earn that living wage in an expensive city it wasn't sustainable at all. And I was exhausted all the time. One of the things that being coached and about raising my prices to start with is that our coach said to me, you're not serving the people that you serve if you're exhausted all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let's put a pin in that, y'all. You're not serving the people you are meant to serve if you are exhausted all the time. Because everything you're saying, Janet, my folks can relate to. So you really do, you have a heart for this that is really deep, that goes really deep. You care so much about your students. And when, like you said, it was like cutting your arm off to not do music as your life. So that passion pulls you forward, but all the hours were killing you. How did that impact you? What was that actually like when you were working that hard, like you said, to just make a living wage? How did it impact your day to day?
Well, at the top of the list is the fact that I didn't write a song for 2 years. I thought, oh, maybe I don't have anything left in me. Maybe I'm not going to write a song again. And that was one of the most terrifying feelings in the world. And I was just grieving that. It also just made my bandwidth in the classroom much less. So the quality of my teaching was really diminished. Once I started taking care of this stuff and started working normal hours and started having, I started saying things to my husband like, wow, what is this interesting sensation of being rested?
Rested.
And the quality of what I was offering, it just went to a whole other level.
Off the charts. Yep.
Yeah, it really did. And well, one of my sisters always says to me, Janet, just because you can handle it doesn't mean it's a good idea.
Right. Just because you can handle it doesn't mean you should. Right.
Yeah.
Well, which is also part of what happens as a business owner is that we evolve and our business evolves as our desires evolve, right? What we want changes over time.
Yeah.
And something that you just said just struck something with me. When you said that with your students, you teach them that they have to dare to suck. And I've heard you say that to a lot of people over the years, so I know that is what you say all the time. It just struck me. Did you have to do that as a business owner when you began to get some coaching and to learn more? I'm guessing nobody taught you how to run a music business any more than anybody taught me how to run a therapy business.
Absolutely. That's that you hit the nail on the head because, I think that two of the most important things that I heard from our coach was take imperfect action and do it scared. And there's nothing that anyone can say to you that's going to make you not feel scared to go out of your comfort zone. So even with, first of all, learning the information I needed to actually do the cleanup that I needed to do in my business on lots of different levels in terms of systems, in terms of how much I charge. And then over time, my business has evolved in ways as my interests and where I want to put my energy has changed. But along the way, I've fallen flat on my face many, many times. Launched things, that to crickets. I've had all sorts of disasters.
So as you have grown, you've tried things, and some things worked really well, some things didn't work so well. But tell us, what were the things that did work? Like, what were the things that were sort of scary, but as you started to institute them and you got the reaction, like maybe a reaction that you didn't expect, or maybe a reaction that was better than you expected from your students or your clients, like what were the things you began to implement? Like, I had no idea this would work this way.
Well, the first thing was just instituting packages. And just instead of, I used to run around with 15 checks, in my wallet all the time. And I'd be doing the drive-through ATM and, oh my God, the time.
It was dollars per hour. You were getting paid literally for your time in the moment.
Exactly.
Bits
so
and pieces.
I created packages and people paid me in advance for a semester. And I instituted a very simple cancellation policy so that they were, I'm not going to talk about it in the past tense because it's what I still do. I was losing so much money because, parents would cancel with plenty of notice. So they didn't have to pay me for that lesson. Because they gave me enough notice, but they were doing it to schedule a play date with their kids.
Right.
And I was losing $1,000 to $2,000 a year in income because of that. And so I changed my policy so that in a given semester, they can make a certain number of cancellations per semester. So it's makeups they can use, a limited number of makeups that they can use. And I've already been paid.
Yes. Key. That's important. Y'all pay attention to that. Paid in advance so it doesn't hurt you when they cancel.
That's right. And if it's a last minute cancellation, I've already been paid.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you something. Basically, it dramatically cut down the number of cancellations I got, and it basically eliminated the no-shows.
Love it. Love it. So what you did was you came up with a policy that worked for you in terms of it made your income more predictable and more manageable, but it also worked for them because they were more likely to show up to their lessons.
That's right. So it gave them that buy-in, that they didn't have before. And I even had one mom say, I'm so glad you're doing this because you were really too nice about this before. So this is one of my parents. And I was like, wow, Leslie, that's really...
I get that because I've coached people who have raised their rates and then their clients have actually thanked them for it because they knew that it wasn't fair and appropriate. So,
and when I raised my rates, the first thing I did in terms of raising rates is I doubled my rates, which made me want to spit up because it scared me so much. And I used up all my coaching sessions for the year getting ready to do it. But I'm telling you, at that point, I had, on top of everything else that I was doing, I had 11 private students. And when I doubled my prices, I lost 5 of them.
You had 11, you doubled your rates and lost almost half of them.
Almost
5.
half.
Yeah.
So the following fall, I was earning the same money for half the hours. And that's when I, took the first vacation I had taken in a really long time.
I remember that.
I wrote the first song I'd written in a couple of years.
I remember that because it was so huge. So when you lost those 5 of those 11 private clients, did that scare you to death? Did it make you think you'd made a mistake? Did you what did you do with that in terms of your mindset and how you thought about it? Because I have often told clients, I've said, double your rates in half your time. If you lose half your clients, you're still ahead of the game.
Right.
Which they think is crazy when I say that.
Yeah. The whole idea of it it scared me to the depth of my little bitty soul, But the thing is I think the hardest thing, it didn't feel like I'd made a mistake. I was really excited about it, especially once the money started coming in. I was like, this is good, The hard part was that there were a couple people that got mad at me.
Yeah.
And these are my, these are families that I'd been teaching for a long time. And we had a relationship, and I lost those relationships. And that was very painful for me.
Yeah, it would be. Well, if I was seeing somebody that was charging $30 an hour and it went to 60, or they're charging 50 and it went to 100, I can see what that would feel like on their end.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think a big piece of it, and teaching people how to treat you.
Yeah.
I have to say, as a performing songwriter, how you get treated at a $50 gig is completely different than how you get treated at a $500 gig or a $5,000 gig. And you're doing the same thing. But you do get treated differently based on, people place more value on what it is that you do when you charge more. And the other thing, and this was a huge mindset shift for me as well, is that people don't pay me because of what I've done. They're not paying me because I have all this experience. They're not thinking like, well, she has so much experience,
right,
she's doing this and that, and she opened for this artist who's famous. People in general don't care about that. What they care about is the results. They care about if they think I'm going to help them find their guitar playing dream, or songwriting dreams. That was a big shift for me too. And also in seeing that, it's like, it's not just excellent self-care to charge what you're worth, because it takes self-esteem to do that. And I had to act as if for a while. And now I'm like, wow, this is good,
So this makes me think of, I know a therapist who said that this is like a second career for her, I think. And one of her goals was to make full-time income on a part-time work. And the first time I met her and heard her say that, I thought, how cool is that? And she came across with this level of confidence that I don't often see. That was really inspiring, actually, to everyone else who heard her say that. And that's what I'm hearing in you, is that this is important. I want to emphasize this for a minute, because I want listeners, healers, my people, I want you all to get this. Janet did something really big. She doubled her freaking prices. That's insane, isn't it?
Yeah.
And she risked a lot in that. She did technically lose business, but what she found was herself, a sense of self-respect, freedom, rest, renewed creativity, a renewed connection with her own core. I'm going to guess a new connection with that cutie pie that she's married to. Right? So,
because I had more energy for my marriage, for sure. And I want to say something else too about this, is that what was starting to happen is because I've been teaching for so long, teaching a classroom full of kids is something I've done for a long time. I'm really good at it. And I really didn't want to do it anymore. So over the first few years that I was in this process, I was able to build up. There was this point where I was like, okay, how many private students would I need to replace the income at school? With my doubled prices, it was like, so with 5 private students, it was taking the place of 3 full days a week.
Wow.
At my K through 8 school.
Wow.
And so then I started going like, okay, so why don't I just go ahead and get 5 students? And I'd learned how to market to my mailing list and start reaching out and tell stories about my private students, and which is a way for them to find out that I teach private lessons.
Y'all, that's called seeding. Called seeding. Right, and positioning yourself as a sort of a premium level private teacher. So you learned how to weave that in. That's marketing, y'all. So what she's saying is that when she was just having a conversation either on a stage or with anybody, anywhere, if she's telling a story about her clients or about her work, she's planting a seed that, oh, she does that too. So then what would happen, Janet, when you do that? How does that help you?
Because then people reach out and say, wow, tell me more about your private, about private lessons. Or they would just hear me talk about it in class at one of my concerts. And then when I would send out an email saying, oh, I've got 2 slots available, then they would be like, oh, I remember you talking about this. It would draw them in. It was like a way to make them aware of what I was doing and pique their interest.
Yeah.
So that's a really big thing. And the other thing too, in terms of evolution of my business, is that Slowly but surely, I've moved to a model where I teach 4 evenings a week. I teach Monday through Thursday. I don't accept more than 12 private students, and I teach 5 classes, adult classes. That is a great week, and I don't teach on Fridays. Fridays is a whatever I feel like doing day. So I've had this schedule for several years now, and then in January of 2020, for the first time in 5 years, I raised my prices for the first time since I had doubled my prices. A 3-month semester is now triple what it was
when you started,
when
which
I
was what, like
started.
6 or 7 years ago when we met. I think maybe longer than that actually now.
It's like 10 years ago.
I've lost track.
I know.
So
Well, time flies when you're having fun. But
doesn't it?
The thing is that because I have the schedule I have, which I love, I've had space to put out a CD and just do, before the pandemic hit. And now that the world's opening up again, I've been able to do a little bit of touring. And I've written a book, and I'm going to be publishing my first book in the fall.
Love that.
And, it's a book about teaching music, about creating an emotionally safe space to learn music. Having the schedule that I had before, there wasn't any physical time to do that kind of thing, but there was no emotional psychic space
Yeah.
for me to do that kind of creative work. And now I'm looking at things like, I'm going to try to do giving talks and having a table at a conference and things like that I wasn't even dreaming about. Like, it didn't even occur to me that I could dream about something like that 10 years ago.
You were in survival mode before, just trying to make money. And so,
right.
and which is interesting. Like there's a little bit of a paradox here that I want to point out, which is you didn't treat money like it mattered. You treated your students that's what mattered. You had a student-centered business. And then when you began to actually take money more seriously, if I could put it that way, and to make sure that you were profitable, because this is part of what I teach, is that actually you do have to pay attention to the money first, honestly, which feels counterintuitive and feels wrong when you're the kind of person who is focusing on empowering and healing and encouraging others, which we both are. But when you start putting yourself and the bottom line, you really kind of had to treat that first. And then what ends up happening, you make more money and you do better work and you have all this bandwidth now to go off in all kinds of directions, which is exciting and which is a great opportunity, a great segue to talk about Ireland. What's that about? Tell us about that, because that's a whole other part of your business that I never saw coming, and I just love. I want people to hear about that.
Oh, yeah. Well, I had this idea. There's actually 2 parts of my business that I want to talk about, that when it comes to, like, how can I best serve the people that I serve. This friend of mine, a singer-songwriter friend of mine, he owned and operated this tour company that was bringing groups of people for music-focused tours to Ireland. I talked to him and, considered the idea of trying to run my own tour with his company, but for a number of reasons it wasn't a good fit. And one of them was that they usually have like 25 people on a bus. I wanted to do the same thing, but I wanted to have a smaller group to make it more intimate. And I was introduced to this woman in Ireland who lives there, and she and her husband run a kayaking adventure business. And so she does this thing for me where she's just off the charts cool.
She is.
She's helped me create a couple of itineraries that are they're authentic. That it's not like huge groups of people cramming their way into a venue and stuff like that. It's like a small group of people that can go in and do a bunch of things that the locals do. I mean, that we do tourist attractions as well, but then we can go hang out in a pub and listen to music, or if there's people who play music on the trip, sometimes we'll have a song circle. And or the last group we took, we're in a pub and everybody learned how to pull their own pint, and there was a gentleman there who was playing the accordion, and he would play the accordion and sing. And then after we'd been dancing and we'd been listening to them sing for a few songs and a few dances, the guy who was calling the dances, he looks at us, he says, "What's your party song?" And basically, we were all invited to perform something. So I pulled out a camp song that I could do as a call and response. And then it broke the ice. And that's a very Irish thing to do. That you're sitting and you're drinking a pint in the pub and you sing your party song, and everyone takes a turn. So it's very, very cool.
So y'all, just to fill you guys in, I went on one of her trips. It was the second one she'd done. So she was still figuring out her systems. She was still figuring out the marketing. She was taking imperfect action, and it was working in different ways. And on the trip I went on, I was her only client, which was great for me, not so great for Janet, depending upon how you look at it. But since then,
Well,
she's
it was-
go ahead.
It was an investment. We had a wonderful time. And I mean, what could be bad? We were hanging out with you, Wendy.
Oh, well, it was pretty awesome. Let me tell you, it's like a highlight of my life, honestly.
Yeah.
And it was all the things you're saying, but about being small and intimate and real and connected. And we had experiences. I later traveled on my own in Ireland solo, and I could not find the kind of places that you took us to.
It comes from how I've always traveled. When I was just out of college in the 80s, I went with a backpack and a guitar and a Euro pass around Europe, mostly around France, for 2 months. I had all sorts of really cool experiences that you can't plan for. So I thought, well, what if I could create that kind of a feel with a small group? And I feel like we've been able to do that. The other thing I want to mention too is because I have the bandwidth, it's not only possible for me to run these tours, and now I have 2 tour leaders running tours for me, musicians who are bringing their friends and fans.
Yeah.
And both of my tour leaders, their tours are sold out. I started, when I raised my prices again in 2020, I decided I wanted to include these weekend retreats for my guitar students with their tuition, because I wanted to have a place where we could go twice a year where I could teach them how to play music with other musicians.
And there was more of an in-depth, intensive kind of experience. And I remember that too, when you started adding retreats to the mix of what you offered. So as you had more room, you really were offering your services in a more variety of ways, and you were playing with what works, what clicks, what serves.
Exactly. And now, because I added that to the package, I just ran a retreat like a month ago. And so I had 10 students learning how to play music with other people, because people come to see me because they want to be able to play and sing their favorite songs, and they want to be able to play music with other people, and they want to be good at it. On Saturday night after dinner, we have an Irish-style music party. In Irish, you would say a céilí. And we sit in a circle, and anyone who wants to sings their party song. And, zero pressure. And I have this student, Mary, who really good. And she's also painfully shy. The idea of getting up in front of an audience. When she started studying with me in 2020, it was because she had been too shy to come to my in-person classes. But once I was online, she's like, okay, I'll do it because I can be muted.
Because she could kind of hide in the background while she was learning.
Exactly. And this is a woman, this is a woman who has a PhD in developmental psychology. She's brilliant.
Right.
And
brilliant and terrified.
So it doesn't matter how smart you are or how, quote, talented you are. When it came around to her turn, she started to play a song, and then she stopped and she was like, I'm just too nervous. I can't do this. And so it gave me a chance. It was a teachable moment. I was able to share my experience, from all the times I fell flat on my face because I was nervous. There's zero pressure here. You can play. You can not play. It's all good.
So y'all, in the therapeutic world, we would call that challenge by choice. It's essentially the same thing that happens with a ropes course or with experiential work, right? You can choose to do it or choose not to do it. Either way is brave because you are being true to yourself no matter what.
Oh, I love that. That's the challenge by choice.
Yeah, that's what that is. Mm-hmm.
Well, the second time around, she was like, oh, screw it. And she went ahead and she played the song. And it was so inspiring and so beautiful. So if that wasn't good enough, little did she know she was doing a good deed. In Yiddish, you would call it a mitzvah. Because earlier that day, this woman, Gretchen, who studies piano with me, she'd had a total meltdown before lunch.
I love this, Janet. There are so many parallels I can think of with this. This is so good.
So she was melting down because she was like, Janet, I just can't keep up, and I feel like everybody else knows what they're doing, and I just don't feel like I don't know what I'm doing.
Stupid.
Oh yeah, she was a wreck. So we talked Gretchen off that ledge. Well, then that night, Mary has her challenge by choice, right?
Right.
And apparently, I just found this out last week, Gretchen went over to Mary at breakfast the next morning to thank her. Because Mary did what she did, all day Sunday, Gretchen just had fun.
Huh.
And that's how she got permission to suck.
I love it.
Is because she saw Mary do what she did.
And what I love about this, Janet, you really are doing healing work.
Yeah.
You really are. And so like, it's not just teaching a class. I've done a ton of experiential work as a therapist, and I've done wilderness-based work with adolescents, and I've done ropes courses and all that kind of stuff. And I had the secret adventure business going for a while.
Yep.
And I have always been a fan of getting people into something they think they can't do, but they can, and seeing the growth and the pride and the joy and the self-respect that comes from pushing through those fears. What I love about this especially, I love the way this is coming together, because you yourself had to push through those fears 8, 9, 10 years ago when you started raising your prices, implementing packages, setting boundaries around your time. You stopped going to people's houses, required them to come to you. You started doing all that. You began to free up space and energy. You went on vacation. You got your songwriting back. You got your artistic heart back, breathing life into it again. And now look, you're leading people on trips across the sea to a country that is, to me, is almost magical, and especially with its music. And you're setting up situations where your students don't just grow in whether or not they can handle a fretboard or a scale, but they are literally breaking through internal barriers that they didn't even realize they had.
Absolutely.
And that's just freaking awesome. I love that. That is as therapeutic as it gets.
Well, that is so much of what my why is all about.
Yeah.
It's just so much of it. My first husband used to tease me after students would leave the house after their lesson. He would tease me. He'd say, "So, how much of that lesson was guitar and how much of it was therapy?" And I would laugh and I would say, "Yes."
Right. I love that exactly. So I want those who hear this to get that whether you are a massage therapist or a energy healer or a psychotherapist or whatever it is you do, you pour yourself out for your clients in all kinds of ways. But there's so much more you can do when you take care of your body, when you protect your energy, when you have boundaries around your time, and when you get the business side of your practice cleaned up so that you're making decent, appropriate money for less work so that you have something left over to give. And then look, there's no telling. I guarantee you when Janet started this years ago, she certainly didn't see this where she was headed. And yet here you are. Right?
Even the idea of, I had a dream of being able to run weekend retreats, but it seemed like maybe someday I'll run a weekend retreat just like real grown-ups, And but the truth is that because the flight attendants say it on every flight, put your own oxygen mask on first before helping others, because if you're passed out or dead, you can't help anybody.
Well, there you go.
So the bottom line is that I had to put my own oxygen mask on first to be able to optimally serve my students.
So Janet, tell everybody, those who are inspired by you, those who might want to learn about your trips, those who might want to get your book when it comes out, because I know that's coming out this fall. How do people find you? How do they learn more about you? Where do they connect with you?
Well, you can find me on my website at janetsplanetmusic.com, or you can put in janetfeld.com. It'll bring you to the same place, janetfeld.com, or janetsplanetmusic.com. You can find me there and find out about We have our next tour to Ireland is August 25th to September 2nd. And we have a few seats left. It's filling up, and we'd love to have you.
And depending upon when you all hear this, like by the time the trip may be, if it's in the past, then get on her list anyway, because she'll be doing more of these. And I can tell you from personal experience, it's not like any other trip I've ever been on to travel with her. So I really, really, really do recommend that. I just want to thank you so much for the example that you set for others in treating yourself with respect, treating your business with respect, and in turn, raising the bar for your clients in such a beautiful way. You and I both have a lot of mutual friends, and I have seen people whose lives have been impacted by your work. And I just love that you have come here today to share this with my people, because it makes my heart really happy. Is there anything that we haven't said, any last minute thing that you feel like you want to say that will make this episode complete?
I would just like to share something I say to my students all the time, that when you're thinking about doing something for yourself and you're thinking like, oh, I couldn't do that, or if you have any sort of fear, limiting beliefs, anything like that that's preventing you from making your dreams come true and, making it possible for you to really serve your clients from the highest and best place. One way to allow yourself to dare to suck is to picture how you've reacted when you watch a little child learn how to walk. When we're watching little kids do this, we're not thinking something like, oh my God, you fell again? But that's the way we talk to ourselves. I mean, if we spoke to our friends the way we speak to ourselves, we wouldn't have any friends. So swapping out that image and letting yourself be that little kid who's just learning how to walk and falling on their little diaper butt, it just helps us have more compassion for ourselves as we learn something new, which is harder when we're adults because there's already things that we're competent at and sometimes even brilliant at. So to put yourself in a position of being a beginner can be emotionally very difficult. Actually, I heard Cicely Tyson, the late, great Cicely Tyson, speak on my campus. And someone asked her how she kept her skills sharp. And she said, I take beginners classes. I go back to the basics.
I love that. And I love everything you're saying applies to practice owners, people who have just launched their private practice, who often feel like such a beginner. Yeah. And y'all, you have to admit, like, what other podcasts are you going to hear people say, imagine that you just fell on your baby diaper butt. So there you go. Like, I mean, if that's not good, I don't know what is. So this is really, really great. There are just so many takeaways to me, and we can apply to our life as a business owner, much less as good Lord, y'all, if you want to play guitar. I mean, there's some lessons for that. But the thing that you said today, I've been taking notes, and there were like so many good takeaways about teaching people how to treat you, about learning that people invest in their own results. It's not about you. It's about what they get from it, about the power of taking imperfect action, about when you talked about that you had to act as if in the beginning, that you grew into the self-confidence, which a lot of therapists are going to get that. We talk about acting as if all the time. And this is not fake it till you make it. It is taking that uncomfortable first step and going, okay, I can do this. Oh, look, that worked. Okay, I can do this. All right, that worked. And then, okay, so that didn't work great, but it worked a little bit. Now, how can I improve it and try it again? Like, there's just so many good things there. So thank you, Janet, for being here today. I am going to bring this to a close, but I hope you guys, if you love this episode as much as I think you're going to, I hope you will give it a 5-star review. I hope you will share it with a friend in any artistic, creative, or therapeutic kind of industry. Share it, because the lessons here are for all of those folks. And we need to get the word out. Thank you
so much for having me here, Wendy. It's been so much fun talking to you today.
You're welcome. It's so good. All right. I will see you around, my friend.
See you around, my friend.